kPa and then shear. Second specimen was consolidated to 200 kPa and then unloaded to 100 kPa and then shear. Third specimen was consolidated to 400 kPa and then unloaded to 100 kPa and shear. Fourth specimen was consolidated to 100 kPa and just before monotonic shearing, we have applied a small deviatic stress of 20 kilopascal in 20 cycles. The fifth specimen was given cyclic consolidation loading of 100 and 200 kPa in 10 steps. So I have performed my research on DL clay. DL clay is a silty soil having a specific density of 2.68 and its liquid element is non-plastic. Here we can see that all of the specimens have almost same properties. Here, first of all, the initial suction was measured, and here we can see that initial suction, actually the moisture content and the degree of saturation of all specimens was approximately same. Therefore, the initial suction of all specimens was also same. In this research, isotropic consolidation process was used. So here we can, and the pre-consolidation pressure on all the specimen was approximately 100 kPa. Therefore, here we can see that up to 100 kPa, all the specimen behave isotropically. But after that, some anisotropic on the specimen was observed. And this anisotropic was observed due to on the specimen which has isotropic pressure of more than 100 kPa. In this figures, we can further see the isotropic behavior of the soil. So we can see that up to isotropic rating from 35 to 100 kPa, specimen behave isotropically. But up to loading of 200 kPa or unloading to 100 kPa or unloading to 150 kPa and unloading to 100 kPa, some anisotropic was observed. Here we can see the change in the void ratio with the change of the net stress. So for all the specimen, the void ratio decreases with the increase of the net stress. For the specimen in which we applied the cyclic consolidation, we can see due to the application of cyclic consolidation, there was further decrease in the void ratio due to cyclic loading. And due to application of cyclic deviating stress, little bit void ratio was more decreased. Here we can see the effect of change of net stress, effect of net stress on the change of degree of saturation. Here we can see that the suction decreases with the increase in the degree of saturation. For the specimen on which isotropic cyclic loading was applied, there was further decrease in suction along with the increase in the degree of saturation. Similarly, for the cyclic loading of cyclic deviatic stress loading, there was also decrease in the suction with the increase in the degree of saturation. Here we can see the stress relationship in the cyclic loading. Here we can see that as no further deviative stress was applied, but due to the cyclic deviative stress loading, the axial strain was increasing without any further increase in the deviative stress. For other specimen, we can see that deviative stress was increasing with the increase in the axial strain. Increase the change in the suction with the axial strain was observed, and we can see that suction was increased with the increase in the axial strain. So finally, the specimen, I have cut the specimen in the 3 layers, and as underrated conditions were used, so I have checked the water content finally in this, all the specimen, and it was observed that no water was lost in all the test series. So finally, we can say there are some conclusions. Void ratio decreases and degree of saturation increases with increase in net pressure. Unloading does not affect void ratio or change or degree of saturation, whereas cyclic consolidation results in little more decrease in void ratio and increase in degree of saturation. Unsaturated soils behave isotropically under isotropic loading at low net pressure. Axial strain increases as a result of cyclic deviated stress. Finally, the mechanical behavior of DL clay is not affected significantly by loading sequence incorporated in this study. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So we have time for a few questions. Yeah.
So, what are the differences between saturated and unsaturated soil? Is it based on only the water content?
No, the main difference is the presence of air. Because in saturated soils, we just consider that water and soil structure. But unsaturated soil, the main thing is the air we also consider.
Okay, so but what is the the practical application of your research?
Actually, everywhere in our country or in Japan or everywhere in the world, the actual soil is unsaturated soil. The residual soils are unsaturated soil. But because the you can see the research or the testing techniques are the different, and this apparatus is not available anywhere in the laboratories, in the common commercial laboratories. So normally we consider all the soils as the saturated soil.
Thank you very much. So now it's time for the last presentation of this session. So not the symposium, only this session. After this, we will have a short break for prayer and coffee break. So I would like to invite Mahiuddin Qazi, and his research topic is the research trends in integrated microwave photonics.
Good evening, everybody. I will be talking about the recent trends in integrated microwave photonics. And I'm basically belonging to the Nakano Tanimura lab at the University of Tokyo. Basically, we deal with photonic integrated circuits. So we make them, we grow the crystals, and then we fabricate the circuits, and then finally we characterize them and try to see if they are suitable for application. So now the problem is, this topic is a bit heavy, so I was not very sure how to speak about it, since you need some kind of background. So I'm trying to correlate everything with electronics, because we are more familiar with electronics because we carry many electronic products with us. So this is basically the background. I will talk about the background of photonics related with electronics, and then I will switch to integrated microwave photonics. It's a lot of slides, so I'll just quickly go through them. So basically, in 1958, Jack Kilby made the first integrated circuit. Okay, so this was for electronics. In a very similar time, like just in 2 years, we have the laser with us. So basically, if you quantize electrical energy, you have electrons, and if you quantize photonic energy, we have photons, or light energy, optical energy, we have photons. And a combination of this is basically the electronics plus the photonics is basically you have something known as integrated photonics. So if you see the evolution of electronics, you have come a long way with a big room. You have come to your PC circuit board. Okay. So why is electronics so successful, and why we could not replicate in photonics is a big question. So one of the advantages you have is you have the economics of wafer scale, the performance. And a lot of effort has been focused on one particular material, which is silicon. So can be repeated in photonics. We haven't been able to do it so successfully for the past 20 years. Now, a few of the reasons is, because not much of the focus is on one particular material. So what is the success we have achieved till now? We have the LED, we have routers which are on chip. We have a lab on a chip, which is wherein you can detect using light some diseases on a chip, which is like around 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. So again, you have the energy, you have some of these equations which play, which is cost, ergonomics, sustainability and stuff like that. This is the paper wherein this word photonics was first mentioned, and if you look at the date, it's quite long back. So it's like around 1960s. So what exactly is photonics is basically you're using light, you are using electronics, you are using input-output, and you are using power. So anything which goes in this environment, you can have applications with it. So that is what the basic aim is. So basically you have a waveguide, so this can be light, or it can be any material, group 3, group 5, or group 4 material, and then you pass light through it. So basically this is, and then you manipulate this light in the waveguide to actually have something called as photonics chip, a photonic chip basically. So you can manipulate polarization of light. Now you know that electromagnetic wave is a transverse wave with two components, the transverse electric and the transverse magnetic component. So you can also manipulate polarization of light. Now, why I'm talking about polarization is currently what you have seen is like from 1980s, since we had stable laser operations, we used wavelength division multiplexing, the polarization division multiplexing, which was used with wavelength division multiplexing, and then now we are using SDM, but still the efficiency of the circuits is not that high. And if you look at the current deployed transceivers, which are coherent transceivers, you can see they are using 80 watt of energy. So now we need to reduce this energy, and also in order to make use of this reduced energy, if you use if you have low power consumption, then you can have applications which are in the electronics domain and which are basically used for microwave photonics based. So the topic which I will be talking about, this is the work which I had done for a few months back. So this is polarization division multiplexing. So you have an optical fiber or a waveguide which is on a crystal, and then you can send two TE and TM along with on the same at the same time. So you have like doubling of your data capacity. This is what a basic power PIC circuit looks like, and I will skip this slide. And this is why I talk about this is because for integrated photonics, you need to integrate active components with passive components to achieve any kind of, good I would say application. Because if you don't have the active part in your circuit, which is a laser, you basically don't have what is the heart of your device. Because if you have light, then you can do anything with any sensing application or any transmission application. And then along the way, you can basically manipulate light using different components like modulators. And then at the receiver side, you have the photodetector for detecting light. So basically, currently, if you look at the market, these components for the polarization multiplexing or wavelength division multiplexing are off chip. We need to bring this on chip, and that is one of the major applications or major way forward for having many different types of integrated applications in your device. So these are some of the papers which were published in this domain, but still you can look at the dates. It's like very recent papers, but still the device is like the integration part is not completely achieved. Now basically this is the crystal which you have over here, and you basically have different modes of light which you are trying to manipulate by changing the geometry of your structure or the geometry of your crystal. And if you look at this device over here, you have the MQWs or any heterostructure. So if you have this structure, you have basically what I was talking about, an active device. And if you don't have this gain part in your device, you have basically what is the passive components. So this is the device which we have developed in our lab, wherein you have a laser source. This is basically a Bragg reflector over here, and you have the laser output light over here. Now what we are planning is, we are trying to integrate this into different types of applications for microwave photonic circuits. This is the way how we do it. We have something called as a crystal growth technology, wherein we deposit atoms to create your crystal. This is something, the stress-strain relationships. This is how we characterize our devices using the X-ray diffraction technique. And basically, what exactly is a microwave photonic link is like basically you are having, instead of the optical fiber over here, you are trying to have something which is, instead of the electrical fiber over here, you are trying to have the optical fiber, because electronics can be intercepted for and have can be intercepted for military applications and have losses which are like in very high losses in dBs. So basically over here, if you look at the current data trend over here, so you need something which is like 25 exabytes per month. This will consume a lot of power. And if you go back, if you replace the electrical links with optical fiber links, you can reduce these powers. So you have many applications in defense technologies, in communication, in natural sciences. So instead of using the coaxial electrical cable, you try to change it to the optical cable or optical crystal, basically. This is how they generate microwaves. So now the generation of microwaves is is done electronically. But in this, you can use optical components to generate RF microwaves at the output. This is some of the techniques which are used. So in this, you use a master laser which is locked on the RF, and basically you mix these two different light waves to generate your RF at the output. This is the other technique wherein only one laser is locked on to the electronic circuit. Again in this they are using completely optical components. Okay, so basically I'll kind of skip this. These are some of the applications which are currently being focused on. Now in this, if you see in the electronic application, you have a single light source. In this, using the optical phase domain, you have you can basically steer the beam in different directions. Okay, so in this integrated microwave photonics, we basically plan to replace this electrical wires with optical connections, wires of crystals, basically. These are the standard model which is currently being investigated for. I'm just taking 2 more minutes. Which is currently being investigated for having electrical components and optical components on the same chip. And then finally, I will just compare what are the materials which are being used. You have silicon, 3-5 hybrid. Silicon is what I talked about and touched upon before, which is the focus of electronics industry. There are the motivation is basically to achieve low power and minimal footprint, and there are a few issues with this technique, because silicon doesn't give you active components, wherein you need active and passive both, as I talked about earlier. This is the trends in data capacity for different materials in 3.5. In 3.5, you also have the different components which were successfully demonstrated by different labs. This was in Spain, basically. So these are the detector components for the 3.5, mostly in the indium phosphide materials. I'll skip this. I'll skip the transistor model also. And basically the advantages of silicon are the low power. You have application, but still in silicon you don't have your light source. I'll skip some of the demonstrations. These are the various waveguide technologies which are currently commercially used. Again, this is a triplex technology. Okay, so the advantages of group 4 and group 3. Yes, okay, I'll finish it. Finally, I would like to say that if you want to use active-passive integration for microwave photonic applications, you need to use the group 3-5 and not group 4, which is used basically in the electronic industry. Yeah, these are some of the images which from my fabrication errors which I had. And yeah, finally I would like to conclude my talk. And if you have some questions about integration technologies or something, we can go on.
We may accept 1 or 2 short questions for going to break.
Just one short question.
Yeah.
So what is the wavelength of this, the microwave?
Basically, if you look at the optical domain, you basically use the optical wavelength range, the C-band. But microwave, if you look, it's at very high frequencies. So basically, for crystals, you have a lot of losses. So it's in gigahertz, basically, terahertz range.
The frequency?
Yeah, frequency which is being generated.
Okay, so where did you put, in electromagnetic spectrum? If you put in the, electromagnetic spectrum, so where do you put your, the microwave? In terms of length?
In terahertz range.
Oh, okay.
Terahertz range, yeah.
Okay.
Gigahertz to terahertz. But most of the work is being done in the C band. It's not in the terahertz range. So that is one of the issues for integration.
Okay, so that's the announcement for the session, concluding the session. Thank you very much. So we will be back after a short coffee break and prayer at 5 5:45.
Yes.
To 5:45. So okay, so after last session we will be having dinner around 7 o'clock. So kindly participate.
Bangladesh in the map is 2 words, not 2 words. T is capital, it should be Bangladesh. Same, 1 word. My name is Rajiv, I'm from Bangladesh. I just applied for the job. 4.475 billion in 2014. I'm really for 2 years.
Like I saw more figures that geological condition in Bangladesh is basin in the center of the country. So
Maximum is Bengal Basin.
seismicity is high.
Seismicity, no. We still do not have. It's been around 150 years. We have the largest earthquake in 1857. So that was around 8.1. So after that, last year we had a very close one in Manipur, India. 6.5. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Good.
Yes, yes, yes. So I really want that. I really want enjoy
অ্যারেঞ্জ করার জন্য অলরেডি যোগাযোগ করছে
Yes.
আলাদা আলাদা দুইজন আলাদা পাঁচ চারজন আলাদা
No, no, no. Take the video.
বাবা 5,000 টাকা দরকার নেই 5,000 টাকা নিয়ে রাখবো
ঘুরতে হলেও তো আবার ই লাগে এর মধ্যে একজন আর বলছিল সে সাবওয়েতে উঠবে না ট্রেনগুলোতে উঠবে না তাই বলছিলাম যে একটা সাইডে দিলে তো
আমি হচ্ছে ফিজিক্সে
নামাজ